Nick, what are we doing here?
Hey, Rob.
What the hell,
What do you
man?
want to do? What do you want to do with your life? Remember your guidance counselor used to ask you that?
Yeah, a lot.
What are you going to do with your life? Then they would have all the hippies would run off to California to go find themselves and discover, go to meet themselves like it's a separate person. Remember all that?
Yeah, I remember that crap.
Remember when people gave up on that?
Well,
I think that's when life started to suck.
Well, the question is, if you're not going to do that, then what are you going to do? Work in a call center? Sell your soul to the devil?
You can do them both. That's the thing, is people have lost sight of the idea of figuring out who you are.
Who you are. That's a good one.
Well, the thing is, your identity, form follows function.
Yeah.
Your identity is more of a function of what you do. And then you start getting into the whole, well, to do is to be is to do, all that other stuff.
You have all that stuff.
Yeah. So my thoughts on the matter there are like, because I've heard lots of people talk about true will. I've seen the stuff that Crowley writes about it, but he never actually describes what it is, except in one part of Liber Thisarb.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it handy, but he gives it. First, he tells the whole. He gives you the instructions to go through these exercises where you walk backwards, write backwards, and eventually you can think backwards back to the point of your birth. And I'm like, yeah, you never did that.
Yeah,
I know you never did that.
Here.
But I think that it's an interesting exercise, but you don't need to do that, because when you get into the second part of the book, he starts talking about, well, suppose you are on a desert island, you've never seen anything, and then one day this big box washes up on the shore. You open it up, and inside there's a carrot. It's like it's a big box with wheels on it, and you can sit and you can look at it. You're like, well, the wheels on it mean that it's supposed to go on a road. There's a big shaft out the front with space for two animals, so you can kind of piece together from what it is. You can figure out what it does. And a lot of people don't give themselves that level of introspection. They're saying, well, what do you want to do with your life? Well, my family's always been doctors, or they've always been in the military. Everybody goes to college, but nobody stops and thinks about what the nature of their actual will is. And your will is like a vector. It starts where you're born, and it goes in a particular direction with a particular momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that doesn't have to be the same as everyone else's. It can be the opposite of everyone else's.
Are you saying that this is something like aligned with higher purpose or destiny?
Doesn't have to be higher purpose. It's just that's just the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my thoughts on it. Is if you look at you've heard of the machinery of the universe, you may have actually seen it.
Mm-hmm.
So everything in there, if you open the back of a watch, like a wind-up watch, you can see there's all these parts in there. Everything fits together. There's no wasted space. You've got your mainspring, you got your escape wheel, you got the little fork that rocks back and forth on the escape wheel to limit how fast it's moving. All of these things all work together, but they're all different.
Yeah,
nothing is duplicated in there. Even the hour hand and the minute hand are different, and they have different cogs. And some things have cogs on the side of them that get them to move at different speeds in relation to different functions. So if you think about a person, what's their place in the machinery of the universe? Now, society is a lot more complex. Despite what they tell you in corporate management studies, society is a lot more complex than a Swiss watch.
I'll tell you that much, sure.
So you have all of these different people. Now, I've heard people talk about, oh, my true will is to write books. Like, okay, well, and I actually heard someone tell me that their true will was to have babies. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, babies. Okay. Sure, yeah. So you're just basically a clown car that babies fall out of. Like, is that your really? Animals do that. How is
Sure.
that someone's true will? But if you look at it, like the ants, an ant colony has workers, they have specialized workers that only do certain things. They have soldiers, they have drones, they have all the
Wing.
different, yeah, they have all the different functions, and everybody is born knowing their function. So I think if you look at it more like in the sense of an ant colony, but more complex, um, it would be your true will wouldn't be something that you accomplish. It's not a quest. It's not like, oh, my quest was, or my true will was to retrieve all these old books from that room under the paws of the Sphinx and translate them into English and get them published. It might be that might be an effect of your true will, but that in itself is only one particular operation. You have a function. Maybe your function is to dig up old books. You know, someone else's true will might be translating stuff so everyone can read it,
Kind
or
of like
teaching
potential
languages so you
program.
don't have to translate stuff.
Yeah, but wasn't it Uncle Al who said that like one of the greatest sins that you could do is know your true will and not do it because that's like the highest form of black magic and that's like the
Yes.
equivalent of giving the finger to God.
Yeah. To know your true will and defy it. So because at that point, and because when you're on that vector, when you're
Mhm.
in your particular place, you assume your spot in that watch and you're
Yeah.
taking part in the clockwork. But if you take that one thing out of it, you say, okay, I don't want to be an escape wheel anymore. I want to be one of the hands, or I want to be on the face. Well, you
Or I'm
can
not just
put
gonna
that
do
on the
my
face.
job. You'll cause the whole watch to blow up.
The whole thing stops.
Yeah.
Everything stops, and you look stupid.
What happens to you though? That's the question. That like there are some people due to fear, due to conformity, to whatever reasons, they're not aligning with their true will after they know it. Usually, what happens to them on like a regular mundane level, like if you knew your true will but you stopped doing it, would your life go to shit? Would you like what? How in your experience?
I think the worst thing that happens to you is nothing. Absolutely nothing. You just waste away.
Mm-hmm.
And there's too many people that they get caught up. They're like, oh, well, I got to pay the bills. I need a job. I'm going to do this. And nobody actually stops to think about what it is that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
What it is they're designed to do. You know,
Let me cut you off on there. It kind of brings up to something I tell to my clients a lot that if Monday to Friday you're an accountant, but Saturday and Sunday you're a dancer, you're not an accountant who dances. You're a dancer who practices accounting. And too many
yeah,
people focus too much on the accountant that they completely neglect the dancer in them. And then they're wondering why they're
yeah.
miserable. But the one thing I wanted to ask you is this. On the converse, you say not absolutely nothing is the least that can happen to them. But I've also experienced this firsthand that sometimes you're in alignment with your true will, but you still feel like you're getting the shaft from the universe, and you're like, "What the fuck, man?" It's like I'm doing the mission order. Where's my extended leave? And does that happen? Yes or no?
Uh, that's also kind of that's another part of the downside to
Mm-hmm.
Thelema is that vector is a single line. It's not extended on the x-axis.
Mm-hmm.
It's narrow and it's straight.
Mm-hmm.
And anything else you try to attach on the side of this could easily get swept off.
If it
You know how
doesn't
many
align
wives
with
I've had?
why?
Well, you know how many wives I've had?
How many?
Well, the ones that were actually mine. The uh-oh, hang on here. What am I doing? How did I
All right, boys and girls. Wade is having
uh
some technical
yeah,
difficulty. There you go. Oh, he's gone. So tonight's episode is a special post-season 2 episode between me and Wade about the true will, and he's back. The gremlins are getting us. What happened to you there, brother?
Yeah, now my sound is way down.
I hear you just fine.
Yeah. Sorry, the screen started to go dark a little bit. Give me 1 second.
Sure, man. You look fine here. He's gone again. Yeah, so tonight's episode, we're talking about true will between me and occultist Wade Long. And we're going to probably just nitpick this topic because this is a topic I think that needs a lot of clarity. And people kind of need a better understanding of what it is because sometimes people tend to mistake want for will. And we're going to talk about that a bit more with Wade. Hello, Wade.
Hello. Yeah, I'm still getting the sound is still. I don't know what the deal is here.
Well, you're the one who taught me the term astral opposition. I think there are forces out there that don't like us talking about this.
Okay. So, am I on here?
You're completely clear.
Okay. Well, so the part of it that really kind of got me was when people are talking about, well, especially when the person was saying, well, my true will is to have babies. And I'm thinking like, well, this kind of sorts it out. There's biological imperatives that everybody has, that every human being, just as part of having the meat suit, that you want companionship, you need to eat, you need to have shelter, you have the whole Maslow's hierarchy, and having babies kind of falls in with that, but that's not unique to you. Your true will is going to be unique to you.
True.
So above that, now you have societal functions like learning, teaching, raising your kids, etc., getting along with your neighbors. All of these things are just functions of what happens in a society. Again, these are not unique to you. But if you
can't say that your true will is to eat breakfast because that's the case. So many people are out there doing it. So continue, please.
Yeah. So it gets to me. They're like, okay, at the end of the day, what type of ant are you? Or rather, at the beginning of the day. If you were to be able to get up in the morning and say, I want to go out and do. What do I want to do? You know, do I want to create art? Do I want to entertain? Do I guard people? Do I, grow food? What are these things? You know, what kind of things am I? And you'll find that it'll be something that you're really suited to. I had whole different ideas about what I was going to do with my life. I went off to college, realized that was not it. That the whole idea of what I was intending to do was not at all what I was suited to do. And what I was suited to do, actually, one of the ways you'll know if you're doing your true will, it'll be incredibly easy and you'll be really good at it.
That's a good one. But here's what I wanted to ask you, though. Listen, this is a good question, though. What are some of the benefits of following your true will? Like, why should people even bother?
Well, because it's easy and you're good at it.
Okay.
It's when you're doing your thing, the thing that you're designed to do, you get that satisfaction out of, you're like, I actually did something positive today. Wait a minute. This thing at the bottom says you are not part of the broadcast yet.
No, you are part of it. We see you.
Okay, this is really strange.
I'm picking up wide and clear. So
okay, because I'm not
telling me that by doing your true will, you're getting a sense of fulfillment. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
But is it also safe to say that if you're not getting fulfillment from what you're doing, it's not your true will?
It might not be. I mean, suppose your whole your true will is logistics, that you're there, you're coordinating whole groups of people, you're management, you're in a leadership position, and you're kind of coordinating all these movements, but you work with a bunch of assholes.
Yeah.
well, you'll find that deeply unsatisfying, but the job itself you'll be good at.
So let's take Franz Barden, for example. He took his occultism very seriously, one of my personal heroes in occultism. But I don't think his true will was to be sent to a concentration camp and a freaking communist imprisonment after he got out of that one. So the point I'm trying to get at is, when you're doing your true will, are you kind of making yourself Rambo to the universe? It's like, we're going to send you where you need you and you're going to do your fucking job. Or can you expect that at least the things that you do will be more meaningful and you'll feel like you live a more fulfilling life?
It can be both.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, when you're doing, because that watch, that one cog, the escape wheel only fits in one spot in that watch.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in the right place, nothing else is going to be getting in your way,
mm-hmm.
as long as everyone else is in their right place.
So where does the concept of the dark night of the soul come into play there, or the guardian at the threshold, where because like a lot of people I've noticed will attempt, especially to very painful parts of their lives, drastic things as occultists. Like they want to say, you know what, my life is fucked up, so I'm going to try to get my HGA. People who do that because they're just so up against the wall, or they'll go into hermitage or something like that. They'll go onto what Craig Williams calls the desert gnosis. So the point I'm trying to get at is, if you're saying that if you're doing your true will, things are going to be easy. But I know a lot of people I think are doing their true will, but there were some really difficult times for them. And they would say more than once they probably wanted to give up. So the point I'm trying to get at is, knowing now that we have the benefits of the true will, what are some of the consequences that we have to pay for if we're going to engage with our true will?
Well, one of the difficulties, the main difficulty, is that not everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're that wheel in the watch and you're moving around and everything's just fine. And then, someone else is trying to put a different part in your spot because they see that you're happy. And now someone else is jamming their part into the spot where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
The good part is that this role was fitted just for you, and that you're eventually just going to crush their parts until your path is clear again, because you have all the momentum. All the leverage is yours. It's your spot. So you have all the momentum of being in the right place. Whereas you have, someone is going to come along and be like, I want to be an escape wheel. Yeah, but you're the winding handle. It's not going to work if you're in there.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the right size. You're not the right shape. None of this is going to work for you. And you're just going to mess it up for everybody. So you do have people that are out there trying to mess it up for other people because they see other folks are happy doing XYZ, and they're like, well, I want to do XYZ. Yeah, but you're supposed to be ABC. And they don't quite get it.
So what does the role of the holy guardian angel play in all of this? Because from what I've been told, that has a direct role in attaining the true will. Like, I remember I saw this video from Lon, God bless him, and he was talking about how early in his magical career, he wanted to work with demons. And one of his mentors told him, don't do it from ego. Come from Tifareth. Come from the true will. And by coming from the true will, you'll have the power to control those demons, but only if you're doing it from the true will. So with that being said, what is the connection between like the holy guardian angel with all of these other things?
If, how they have in the movies where there's this building-sized supercomputer is controlling all the functions in the city, and the guy walks in there and he's like comes into the front. Okay, iRobot, perfect example.
Okay,
Vicky, that face that shows up there when he's talking to her, but she's everywhere in the building, just appears by hologram. That's your holy guardian angel. Your true will is this massive construct behind and inside you. It's this whole big thing of who you really are, but you need a face to talk to really get all the details here, and that's your HGA.
So it's kind of like your operating system between you and your true will. Am I correct?
Exactly. It's your user interface.
Mm-hmm.
And it's every bit as real as you are. It's not like just it's not an illusion. It's just like a condensed version of it that you can interact with. I mean, at the broadly, at the end of the day, it's you.
Mm-hmm.
But you're the guy on the outside of the building trying to come in and talk to the thing. So
Speaking of which, though, like, of course, we've been told about the Liber Samic, and we've also been told about like the Abramelin procedure. But what other forms exist out there that can help you attain knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel?
vision quests
Uh-huh.
are also very similar. I know a lot of people are kind of divided on Carlos Castaneda, but he did write a lot of material about how to meet yourself that way.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other. Usually, it's an ordeal where you're isolated, and you have to, bury yourself alive, or you have to have, a retreat in the woods, or you have to, be in this cave for 90 days or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, it's a matter of just isolation.
But here's one thing I want to ask you, and I brought this up with Steven Skinner. How does this not become UPG? You know what UPG is, right?
What?
Unverified personal gnosis. It's a term I actually learned from Denny from Foolish Fish, and it's a system that works, but it's really just you. And I asked Stephen about it, and he said there's a lot of people who go out there and do that. So like, I do understand the isolation, the surrendering to the process away from the world, but how does it become when does it stop being a holy guardian angel instance and become a unified personal gnosis instance?
What's the difference?
Well, verification, I guess, because at least when you're doing the Abramelin, you can say, well, I did the Abramelin. You know what I mean? Or I did Liber Samic. But if it's like, if I'm going to spend 100 years in Antarctica, can it still get the same result?
Well, here's the thing, and this is where the Temple of Set has it all over groups like the OTO and the Golden Dawn. In a lot of those groups, they will initiate you. They'll say, okay, you have you've put in your time, you've gotten these signatures and blah blah blah, you can now advance to the next level, and they give you the initiation. But the thing is, for spiritual matters, this isn't something that you can just inject into you and they sign off on it on a piece of paper and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily work that way. It's a process of evolution. Whereas the temple, instead of initiating you, they recognize you.
Mm-hmm.
When you are performing the task of an adept, they recognize you to adept. When you have evolved to become a master, they recognize you to mastery. It's having performed the ritual doesn't mean a fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, well, okay, I've done the Abramelin ritual and I still don't have my holy guardian angel, and then you're like, well, okay, so you performed a 6-month ritual. You know, if you didn't achieve knowledge and conversation, you know, what did you really accomplish? You waved a stick in the air and you said some funny words.
And you isolated yourself for half a year. Is the reverse also true? Can you inadvertently be put in a scenario or a point in your life where even if you're not intending to do it, still end up with HGA experience?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what came first. People had these experiences first before someone decided that they wanted to be able to control the situation and say, okay, we're going to try and be able to make this happen on command. You remember back John the Baptist?
Yeah.
When people would talk about all the Baptists had to be so skilled, and they didn't baptize little children, they baptized adults.
Mm-hmm.
The reason they had to be so skilled was because the Baptist would hold you underwater. That's why you had to be submerged. It's not just the water on the. They would hold you underwater until you drowned, and he had to know the exact moment to pull you up. Because if he was too late, you died. If he was too soon, it didn't work, because he was trying to induce a near-death experience.
It's kind of like what happened in Constantine, right? How he drowned the girl to send her to hell.
Exactly.
Whoa.
You know, a lot of people have had near-death experiences, and they come back with just this massive change in their lives because they did it. When everything else, I mean, death is the ultimate isolation from the world. Yeah. So you end up with where you're, even for a moment, in a spot where there's nothing but you.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the only thing in your world. Yeah, you can't help but know who you are.
It's funny. I wanted to ask you this one. Is it possible that somebody, some weird demonic version of Elon Musk or something, can use his resources to properly attain HGA and then use that power for negative reasons in the world? Like totally corrupt it? Or is it that impossible?
Well, there are negative wills in the world.
Mm-hmm.
There's just as many as there are positive wills.
Mm-hmm.
Example. Okay. If everybody just continues building things, we run out of space.
True.
If there's nobody wrecking stuff, you know, what do you end up with? You end up with just a world of garbage. If there's nobody destroying things, then you just end up with too much stuff. So what we used to do at Pathfinders was we used to have summits. We would have light workers that would gather, and they would coordinate their activities, and they would do all this. And then 2 weeks after that, depending on the phase of the moon, 2 weeks after that, we would have the dark workers, and they would work on the different things that they were trying to get rid of. But in between, we would have light dark summits where the light workers and the dark workers would figure out what it is that they're trying to do for the city. Because if you look at, like, you know, the light workers are building stuff up, the dark workers are tearing stuff down. And if they're just building and tearing down the same things, it's a waste of time. But if the dark workers are tearing down stuff and then the light workers are building things in that space and to coordinate the activities, that loop becomes a spiral and the whole thing moves forward. So that's what we're trying to do with the world, is you have an equal number of creators and destroyers, of people who are building stuff up and other people that are tearing stuff down. I would assume that most people are just modifying the things that are already created.
You know, it's funny though that you mentioned that dynamic of the light worker and the dark worker, because I actually think that the lines are getting a little bit blurred nowadays. That I am seeing so many more so-called dark workers doing light work, and I'm seeing so many more so-called light workers doing dark work. Like, I'm not going to mention any names. This is going to be some confidential for now, but I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. There's a particular, if I'm not mistaken, Satanist or Luciferian, or I don't know what he's into. But when you speak to him, the guy is just radiating love. I mean, he's really just an individual who exemplifies a gentleman demonologist or a gentleman Satanist. He's not like your typical Marilyn Manson. No, this guy is just radiating so much gentleness. Then on the other end of the country, and you know who I'm talking about. You got the email of the book. You know what I mean?
There's the thing is that Luciferians are light workers.
Whoa. Now, here's the funny thing, though. The other end of it,
complicated.
The other thing of it, you got people like in the Bible Belt sometimes who are proclaiming that they are the chosen of Christ, but they are beating people up. They're ostracizing Muslims. They're beating up LGBT people, and that's not Christian. That's not light work. You know what I mean? Like, it reminded me of something that happened during the last administration, that there was a family that were living somewhere on the East Coast, and they were so afraid to go out to buy. They were a Muslim family. They were afraid to go out to get groceries because every time they'd go out, they'd get harassed by these typical, you know what I mean, conservative Christian people. He'd say, "You're gonna get out of my country," blah blah blah, all that nonsense. So what happened was a group of bikers, satanic bikers, actually said, "If you're too afraid to go out to get groceries, call us, and we will go with you, and we'll protect you." You see what I mean? It's kind of like, wait a minute. Now the Christians are doing what the Satanists said they should be doing, and the Satanists are acting like Christians, and we're just like, what the freaking hell is going on? You know what I mean?
Well,
it's like we're in a weird world right now.
if you look at the acts like the Church of Satan style Satanists and the 11 laws of the earth, protecting the elderly is actually, I mean, the Church of Satan, especially with the 11 laws of the earth, they are operating almost entirely on biological imperatives. The whole idea of, you know, when you read the laws, like, you know, don't hurt the young of your own species, you know, if you know, if you're traveling in the open, don't bother anybody. These kind of things, you know, and protecting the elderly falls right into that. So it's not even so much a matter of, are they light workers or dark workers? They're basically operating at the highest level of animal by protecting the elderly. And getting back to the thing with the church, I think one of the greatest threats to a person's true will is identity politics.
Very true.
Because if you identify yourself by what you do, that's actually, I'll get back to the dark night of the soul here in a minute, but if you identify yourself by what you do, that's what you're supposed to be doing. But then you have other people that they're like, well, you know, who am I? Oh, well, I'm this skin color, I'm this gender, I'm this persuasion, I'm this politic. It is if you look at how people, the list of things that they use to identify themselves, you'll find that what they actually do is either all the way at the end or completely absent. Because if they're identifying themselves by surface features, they're like, oh, I was born a particular color. Well, that's just because the meat suits you came from gave you a meat suit with that coloration. That has nothing to do with, you know, a black cat and a white cat are essentially the same cat.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody wants to stoke divisions based on color and gender and religion and all these other things. But if you're identifying yourself with one of these teams, you're basically taking yourself out of the game entirely.
Yeah, speaking of the true will, though, here's one thing I want to ask you.
Okay.
Are there lines that are necessarily to be drawn? Because I just spoke about this with somebody yesterday in a tarot reading where I told her, I think I'm pretty clear on what my true will is. But if that at any given moment, that true will is going to cost me my daughter or my son or my dog, the answer is no. Fuck it. I'll burn. I don't care. Because there are certain things in my life that I will not trade success for. And my family is one of it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's just a moral thing on me. But the question I'm going to ask, though, is that are there lines when it comes to chasing after the true will? Like, or will we really be given that Abrahamic send your son to the altar and murder him scenario?
Well, the thing is that family should not be in a position to conflict with your true will. It's one of the things that, you know, because, you know, you have children, it's kind of like spawning, like your line is going this direction. Your children kind of spawn off and go along with you. And then eventually they're going to go their own way because they're individuals. Yes. They may continue to go in the same direction you're going, but they may flip around and go the other direction. The thing is that it should not conflict with your true will. I had a heinous custody battle that I won. I like to attribute that to the fact that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, which actually worked out really well in court. Found out I'm really good in court. But when I wanted to go back to something before we move on, the whole idea of teams. So if you're saying, well, okay, I'm on, I'm on the Raiders, this guy's on the Cowboys, and we're doing, we're in opposition to each other on this field. But also, the point is that there you may find yourself in conflict with other people while you're doing your thing. But if you look at that team, there's people that are on the line. There's people that flank and run around to go and catch the ball. There's the guy that fades back to throw the ball. There's the center that controls, the snap. So everyone has their own function, even if you're in opposition to other people. And if you're doing your part, everything works out right. And you win the game. But even off the field, well, I'm not going to extend the metaphor off the field, but do you kind of see where I'm going with that? Is that everyone has their own function. You're not going to have the quarterback run up and get on the line to try and stop the other guys from getting back.
True.
That's not his job. That's not what he does. He's the cannon. His job is to get the ball down the field. So if you find yourself in opposition to other people, you can always fall back on your true will and do what it is that you're going to do. Now, I know a lot of good magicians who've had to let go of their families because the other person, the other parent was just had too many resources, was too domineering, was whatever. But the point of the only, silver lining there is that the kids have their own vectors, and hopefully they will escape that and continue to live their lives the correct way. Mm-hmm. Because as a parent, if you're going along your true will, you're moving with absolute momentum. So when your children are traveling next to you, your job is to get them up to speed and in the correct direction and find out where, basically to be a launch pad.
Yeah.
You're there to launch your children in the direction that they're supposed to be going with as perfect aim and as much momentum as possible. And the other parent might fuck that up. And if they do, they do. I don't know any other way to make that.
Here's one thing I wanted to ask you. Like, if you talk about true will, one of the people who made it very popular in the discussion was Aleister Crowley. If you ask me, he didn't really the true will was always discussed, but he kind of is the guy who put it in the spotlight because of the writings and the teachings he did. However, if you look at how he lived towards the end of his life, he was kind of like decrepit and squalor and stuff like that, didn't have any money left. Do you think that he deviated from his true will, or do you think that he did it right? What's your take on that? And what I'm trying to ask is it normal to experience difficulty in a life, especially if you're completely tuned in with your true will?
Wait, say that last part again.
Is it normal to experience difficulty, extreme difficulty in your life, even if you're completely tuned in with your true will?
Yes. The thing is, if you're doing your true will, you have the momentum. You should be able to plow through a lot of obstacles. Mm-hmm. But to get back to Uncle Al, I don't know what his true will was. I don't know. Aside from him being the prophet, we're all kind of prophets. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he ever did his true will.
Really?
I know toward the end, when he started getting in with the heroin, and he was getting all hopped up on his various. Very prolific writer. He writes, but in a way, a big part of our societal job is to learn and teach. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know if I don't even know if he knew his true will. Now, he did supposedly have lots of conversations with Iwaz, mm-hmm. but I don't know how much of it he was actually able to accomplish. And, toward the end with the drugs and all the other things, and he was still writing books and he was still selling books and doing that thing. But I don't know. He did seem to have the momentum to kind of keep his whole thing going,
Hmm.
just essentially living as a professional magician. So I would assume that he was doing at least something that he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So which
But
is gonna which,
honestly, I'm not in a position to judge whether or not he was doing it right.
all right. So which is gonna bring me to my next point, which is first for really this the simplistic way possible. I'm sure people are gonna ask this in the chat or on the YouTube. All right, I'd like to determine what my true will is. What are some things I can do to figure this out? And we have to speak very, very, very elementary because we can't be abstract about it. Let's try to make it as simple as possible so we can, even to the point we can make an infographic about it.
I keep coming back to Liber Thisarb
Okay.
and the metaphor of the riding carriage. You know, what sort of things? Actually, a lot of times people will do this in role playing games. They'll make the idealized version of themselves for the first
Yeah.
character. They're like,
Yeah.
well, what would you do if you could do anything?
Mhm.
And now you're in a game where you can do anything. What kind of character do you want? Don't even worry about the dice rolls. You know, what kind of character do you want? And then, stop and think about that. But then you also have to look at, as yourself as a playable character, what are your stats? Are you highly intelligent? Are you really strong? Are you fast? Are you athletic? Are you smart? Are you good at figuring out, little puzzles? Can you sit there and look at a circuit board and tell what it's supposed to do? You have to figure out the things that you can do before you know what you will do. Because, I tried to get into, I went to college, I got into computer science as a major, as a freshman. I got into the computer science major, which never happens. I was really good with computers. I got in there, and it wasn't for me. They had us learning Fortran in the 80s. Fortran. So, yeah, it was insane. So the deal with what you want to do with your life isn't necessarily what you are suited to do, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does.
So you have to kind of look at yourself, and decide, well, what is it? What are your natural instincts? Suppose you're a florist, but you always find yourself, being the one who's, guarding the door. If someone tries to rob the place, are you the one who's guarding the place? Maybe you're not supposed to be the guy in the back cutting flowers.
True.
Maybe you're supposed to be the guard.
Or like another one could be like example being a soldier. Doesn't necessarily mean that if you have the soldier archetype that you're going to join the army. Like if a person is naturally has a predisposition to be a soldier, they'll usually be hardworking, disciplined, structured. But for whatever reason that they're removed from the army or the military, they're still a soldier. So the way they conduct themselves will still be like a soldier most of the time. So even if they play D&D, they'll look at it like a soldier.
That's actually, okay, what you just said. Give me a second here. I've always been a fan of the idea of mandatory military service for every citizen. Because for one reason, every job that exists anywhere exists in the military. So when you sign up, the first thing they do is they give you the ASVAB. It's the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery. They give you a test to find out what you're good at. And then they basically give you a set of, you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do this. I could have gone into military intelligence. I actually scored in 99th percentile for military intelligence. And I should have done it. I'd be a senator by now. A whole different story. I went with welding because I wanted to be able to have a job when I got out. Yeah, okay. So but the thing is that in the military, like in the ant colony, every job exists, and they all work together in a relatively coordinated harmony. So if you have like your whole your whole unit or your whole ship or your whatever your base is. Everyone has their own function. This is the perfect example, and it's another good reason why a lot of people join the military, and why I think people should join the military is that's where you find out what it is you want to do, what it is you're suited to do. And
but here's the thing, bro. Listen, I'm going to cut you off there. There's also something that you've just missed out on. However, you took that whole ASFAP thing, right? There was no mention of the occult there. And look at you now.
Didn't need to be. The occult's a vehicle. Magic is a vehicle. It's a mechanism to get you to where you're supposed to be. I mean, honestly, we're supposed to be doing our true will naturally. And the occult sciences are just a different set of laws of physics that are much more subtle than regular physics. Like things that we'll eventually understand. And this is one of the things I touched on in Acolyte, is that, do you remember phlogiston?
Yeah.
Phlogiston. And now we have dark matter. Because they're saying, well, dark matter has to exist. Why does it have to exist? Well, because the math doesn't work out. So we have to add this other stuff. And 2/3 of the universe is dark matter. You're like, wait a minute. 1,000 years ago, 2/3 of the universe was phlogiston because the math didn't work out. And then we found out phlogiston didn't exist. So if we're looking at this from the perspective of, well, okay, we're trying to make the math work out. Maybe it's because we don't understand gravity as well as we think. And the math doesn't work out because we're starting from the wrong constant. So, I mean, we don't know a whole lot about the Earth. So what do we really know about the gravitational math on Earth? What do we really know? I'm not a physicist, not my true will, just asking the question. But what it comes down to is, I'm going to bring this back around to your question eventually. In the military, yes, there is no one that there's no job for occultism, but there is a job for religion. You can be a chaplain or a religious petty officer. In fact, when I was I had tried to transfer. I wanted to change my job over to be a pagan chaplain's assistant. And I went down, I was talking to the chaplain, and he's just like, so you want to be a pagan religious petty officer? And I was like, yes, sir. And he's like, there's no pagans on board. And I was like, you have 3 fully functioning covens on your ship, sir, and several dozen independents. And I'm watching this guy's face slide right off his skull and onto the desk. I thought he was going to lose every ounce of his shit in several colors because he had no idea. His job is to serve the spiritual needs of the people on board. And he didn't realize that well over 100 of them weren't getting served. And that was his job to know. So, yeah, there kind of is, and there kind of isn't. I mean, they're supposed to have religious petty officers for every religion, and they all coordinate under the chaplain. But again, that's something that is that if that was my will to do, I should have been able to do that. They would have required me to re-enlist if I wanted to change jobs, and I could have done it. Didn't want to, mostly because I didn't want to work with that jackass.
Damn, that's a lot of stuff for us to take under. And, that tonight's episode about True Will taught us a lot. So I just wanted to thank you again for hanging out with me and sharing this with the people. And I'm sure we're going to touch the topic on True Will more, but season 3 is going to be officially airing end of June 2023. And I'm not going to announce yet publicly who's going to be our special guest to start the season, but I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that a certain amazing soul will end season 3 for us. And you know who I'm talking about, man. That this person's
I know who you're talking about.
This person's advocacy needs to be heard. He needs all the support we get. Justice for this person. If they're ever watching us, you don't know me yet. You don't know Wade yet, but we know you. We respect you, and we just want to support you, brother. So I'm kind of asking all the spirits. I even asked our patron Belial to help us out with that, because I'm sure that with him being a guest of honor in season 3's Ender, we could reach a lot more people and get his message across the world if we need to. So I'm looking forward to that one. So this is going to be Robin Wade signing off. We're going to probably be doing another more of these casual episodes, but don't expect any guests anytime soon. And if we do, it's probably going to be somebody we're going to fuck around maybe with Dave Stolowitz or Marco just to say hello and just talk shit, but nothing formal, nothing too out there. And also congratulations, Marco Visconti just launched his Magic Without Tears program again, and I'm very happy that it filled up the way it did. I know he was kind of worried that not too many people were signing up. Then last minute it went kaboom. So more support for that wonderful person, and also for Denny of Foolish Fish for releasing his book as well. A second edition is coming out. Also, shout out to some amazing peoples at the Blackthorn School. If you guys want to take some serious occult learnings from some serious practitioners, you got to check that place out. And last but not least, special thanks to our friends at Anathema Publishing Limited. Those are some good books. Don't you think, brother?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, and also, if anyone has any suggestions of topics that we could cover on these shorts, that'd be great.
Send it over. Yeah, we're always ready to hear from you. So that being said, I'm going to sign up, but don't go anywhere, Wade. We're still going to talk after the class, after the subject. Good evening, Angelo. Also, you just came just in time to say goodbye. So see you guys next spontaneous episode.